Extreme Championship.
Hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Championship Wrestling!
The franchise, Shane Douglas, is the man who ignites the new flame of the sport of professional wrestling.
Prepare yourself, big boy, because I'm Taz, the World Television Champion. Beat me if you can, Bam Bam. Survive if I let you.
So tonight, let the new era begin. The era of the sport of professional wrestling. The era of the franchise. The era of the ECW.
ECW, we're gonna give you the most bang for your buck. We're gonna break every effing rule in the business. And for that, I promise you, we are guilty as charged.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Guilty as Charged, your home for all things ECW. We're going through the timeline, we're going back through the episodes, starting in 1994, and traveling episode by episode, week by week, chair shot by chair shot, and we're going to bring to you all the epic stuff that's happened each week on ECW. I'm your host, Dreadnought X, and with me is Chips. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to get started. My ECW experience is pretty limited, and in 1994 I was 4 years old, so yeah, kind of going back in time a little bit here.
Shit, 4 years old.
Yeah, I don't know if ECW was something I would really have been allowed to watch at that age.
Yeah, I was only 12, so I probably wasn't going anywhere near that either till I never even got started on ECW till the later years, till they were almost done. So
nice. So have you gone back and watched this sort of post, like maybe on the network or anything like that? What's sort of your experience with the whole timeline of ECW?
So like I started, like I said, I started in about 2001. They were just about to have their last pay-per-view, and that's the first time I watched. I think I caught a few episodes Friday nights on TNN, and I watched it a little bit here and there, not too much. But then when that first pay-per-view came out that I had seen, was Guilty as Charged 2001. And man, that blew me away. And then ever since then, I've been like a huge fan. I've watched that DVD so many times since then. It's probably my most watched DVD ever. And so yeah, then throughout the years, a couple buddies of mine that I do some wrestling stuff for. I do some like graphics and video production for some local indie wrestling promotions here, and a lot of those guys were huge into ECW. And then there was an ECW, kind of like a reunion show. I don't know, they didn't call it that, but they had a bunch of old ECW stars coming to like a town close to here. They had Balls Mahoney and the Pitbull and like a couple members of the FBI, Scott Steiner, Al Snow, a couple guys. So we went to that show. Me and my buddy went to that show, and I met up with another fan there. He was from another part in Canada. And he's like, "Oh man," he's like, I've got all the ECW you can handle, man." He's like, "I've got all the episodes, all the pay-per-views, everything." I'm like, "Dude, hook me up." So I went out and bought an external, shipped it to this guy, filled it up for me, shipped it back. And so I've been going back through and like watching every pay-per-view, I watched the odd episode here and there, and I never went episode by episode, but there was like a bunch of best ofs on there, and like I watched all the supercards and just a whole bunch of shit. So nothing in order, but what about yourself?
Nice. So I guess some of this will be sort of fresh to you then. And
Yeah,
some
for
of
sure.
this will be... Okay, that's great. My experience with ECW is didn't watch any of it when it first came around because, age, etc. So went back and sort of when I got into wrestling sort of back in a big way, I sort of originally watched wrestling in the sort of Attitude Era, like I think most people my age pretty much just, had that sort of period of time where they watched. And then going on from there, I sort of dropped off in the sort of early 2000s. Sort of came back into wrestling when the network came out. It was sort of dipped in and out in between there, but when the network came out in the UK, I sort of signed up to that pretty quickly, and I had also read all of Mick Foley's books and read about ECW there, so I sort of, as something that I wanted to do pretty early on, I watched the 2004 or 5 One Night Stand, because I remember reading about that in Mick Foley's, books, and sort of checked a few things out there, and thought, damn, this is a really cool show, and sort of read that a lot of people said that it was kind of true to how the original ECW sort of was. And then I've sort of checked out matches here and there, clips here and there, but I'm going in fairly blind, to be honest.
That's cool. It's like there's tons of episodes I've never seen either, and there's probably like a supercard or two that I haven't watched all the way that I might have just watched a clip for. So we'll probably be in for some treats and see some people we know these days as quite different characters.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. I mean, already in this first episode, there was wrestlers with names I certainly didn't recognize as being there.
Yeah, and then when you see them, it's like, oh shit, it's that guy.
Yeah.
Now, yeah. So, just so people know, this will probably be one of the only episodes we ever mentioned that horrible abomination that is ECW that was on WWE. So, I mean, I liked Guilty as Charged, the first one, that 2005, I think you said, and in 2006 they came back and did another one, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And then they brought back the brand on the whole, and less said about that.
Yeah, so we that's non-canon. That's not canon in our universe here. So,
I mean, if we're still doing the podcast in sort of 7 or 8 years, run out of episodes, that might be all we have left.
True. That's our last ditch effort.
Yeah.
Those Guilty as Charged shows, though, because I remember it's not very often. Like, I don't think I've ever remembered a time where my friend would call me up on a night and say, "Yo, are you watching wrestling?" We would talk about it at school the next day, but it didn't happen like that. So, like, I was done school in like 2001 in high school, and then like a couple years later, or whatever, he calls me up and he's like, I was gonna say sends me a message. I'm so used to texting these days, but he calls me up and he's like, "Yo, you watching Raw?" And it was the night that the ECW guys turned on Tommy Dreamer and stuff, jumped over the barricade, and it was like kind of the start of that whole angle. And he calls me up. He's like, "Dude, you gotta be watching Raw." And I'm like, "Oh, we were both like watching it," and because he was a pretty big ECW fan too, and couldn't believe that like ECW was invading Raw that night.
It's really cool looking back through all the sort of history and how much ECW was this, amazing, sort of like name that only sort of hardcore super wrestling fans sort of knew about, and then it brought itself onto the WWE in its own sort of weird ways, and it's interesting to go back, but there's so many people who are just huge ECW fans that you hear about and who basically don't even watch that much wrestling now but loved ECW back in the day.
Like, how many times do you see WWE go to a certain southern state in America, and how often do you hear a WCW chant break out?
Exactly. I mean, I don't think that's ever happened.
Right, but like how often do they go to like New York or Brooklyn or somewhere and you hear like an ECW chant break out? Like it's pretty often. So
yeah, in fact, I went to an independent wrestling show near me in this small seaside town, and when I was about 12 years old, so like 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a match where someone went through a table and the crowd chanted ECW.
It's like the crowd just, chair shots and tables and barbed wire. That's what people remember from ECW. It's like, and people always say, oh, it's all about the violence and the blood and the guts. But it's like, people also say too, like the people that were there, if you watch it, there's that stuff there. There's like lots of violence there, like especially like the New Jack when New Jack comes in. But man, it's just seeing some of the, like even on this episode or the next episode when we see like Tommy Dreamer and stuff, or just and the emotion that comes out of Shane Douglas, it's just all the emotion and just the passion these guys have for the wrestling. It's like, and the death matches and the violence almost takes like a second backseat to that.
Definitely, and like that, I think that's what's really important about ECW, because I think if it was just hardcore, ridiculous wrestling, it would probably still be remembered fondly by a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there's so much storytelling there. I mean, it's sort of like it's almost a continuation of the sort of wrestling style that I've sort of looked into in Memphis. I've got a friend who does a podcast about Memphis wrestling, and it's sort of like you can follow all these different promotions who've had sort of been more sort of off the wall, have had more extreme sort of angles, and have sort of continued down this path. And there sort of always has been and always will be these promotions that have these great storytelling sort of things in place alongside just these crazy hardcore things, and have these like great fan bases that just absolutely adore it. And yeah, I'm totally glad that we're going to get to cover it.
Yeah, it should be awesome. Should be a wild ride.
Definitely.
All right, so let's so tonight's episode we're going to start we're not starting like all the way back at the beginning of ECW as it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. We're jumping in right at the very end of Eastern Championship Wrestling. They held a NWA heavyweight tournament. It was in August 27, 1994. They held this tournament. It's an 8-man tournament, and ECW Extreme Championship Wrestling was born shortly thereafter. So we kind of picked this point here as our starting point. So
we've got the sort of birth of ECW as people know it in this sort of episode, pretty much. And it was sort of interesting to see. Definitely a good starting point. Though I'm glad you picked it.
Yeah, I figured, most people, hey, there might be some people who didn't even know that before it was Extreme Championship Wrestling, it was Eastern Championship Wrestling, so there's definitely a bit of history there, but I think the thing I'm most fond about is the extreme part of ECW, so, or at least that section of their story.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's what everyone looks back at ECW and thinks of, so... Yeah. I'm sure nobody's tuning into this episode to hear about Eastern Championship Wrestling. So I don't think so.
All right. So what are these? Let's go off the names of these tournament here, and what do you think about these entrants? It ain't no New Japan Super Juniors.
No, definitely not. No, there's some interesting names here. Quite a lot of them I knew because there's some very big stars in this tournament, but also a lot of them I had never heard of before.
Yeah.
So we had Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit as just people that I think most people would recognize those names as great technical wrestlers that were in many different companies. We had Shane Douglas, who I don't think I've ever seen a Shane Douglas match before.
Okay.
So I mean, I heard of it. I knew of him as like a big name in ECW, but it was sort of really good to be introduced to him as this great sort of arrogant heel character who just plays everything off so perfectly, really charismatic, kind of like a pretty boy, really like a great character to sort of get used to. There was 911, who I had never heard of, who was very big and did choke slams.
He's like their Kane of ECW, I find.
Yeah, definitely. We had the Tasmaniac, who I think we'll be seeing more of in future episodes, but that was odd.
Yeah, his ring attire at this time is quite good.
It is. It's amazing, and he's got hair, and it's all wrong. It's all wrong, but very entertaining. Yeah. We had Doink. We had Doink the Clown.
Yeah, he's a wild card.
Yeah, and everyone hated him, even though he seemed to be against someone that we were supposed to hate anyway, because no outsiders in ECW.
Oh yeah, that's one thing we'll get quite often is anytime somebody comes in from another promotion, especially like a WWE guy, they're very quick to hate on that person, no matter who it is. So yeah.
And another prominent name in the tournament was Too Cold Scorpio, who was another name I'd heard quite a lot about, but I don't know if I'd really seen that much of. And I was really impressed by him just in general, his sort of charisma in one of the promos, and his like high flying style is still, pretty impressive and relevant today. Yeah,
he's like a good. Like, he was here when we had that hardcore revival thing. He was here in town. He was like one of the headliners, and he was awesome, man. He was still going, and that was like only a few years ago. And man, he was doing like, you name it, like moonsaults or 450s or whatever. But he's still got it, man. He's really good.
Yeah, no, he was great. But did I miss anyone out of the?
Yeah, the one name that I don't really know too much about is Nishimura.
Oh yeah, he was, I guess, a Japanese entrant. Paulie sort of talked about him at one point in one of his promos, but am I right in thinking we didn't actually get to see his match?
Not on this episode, no.
No.
So we start off here, and it's we go through, the guys have a couple promos, and I don't know about you, but I find Malenko is pretty like he doesn't show much like, I don't know, not passion, but he doesn't show much charisma when he's cutting his promos.
Yeah, it was a very sort of cut and dry, simple promo. It wasn't terrible, but it's not something you'd go back and rewatch.
Right. So we have a few promos here from a couple different guys, and then we start off with the Too Cold Scorpio versus Sabu is our first match, right?
Yeah, it showed some of that. It showed some of that as sort of, I don't know if that was part of a sort of promo package or just sort of like clips. A lot of these matches were sort of in.
Yeah, I think it was just a clip.
Format.
Yeah.
But no, we definitely saw that, and it was interesting to see Sabu, and instantly recognized him by his odd baggy pants.
Yeah, he's got like the MC Hammer pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Scorpio cuts. Scorpio's he's pretty charismatic on the mic, and he cuts a pretty good promo.
He does, and we have our first licensed music in the background that I doubt you'd find on the WWE network.
Oh, is it the Whoop? There it is.
Yeah, surely that's not something that they have the license for.
No, that's the great thing about this footage too. It's all the original themes too, which is that sucks with the network when you get like that crappy themes.
Yeah, I remember from what little ECW bits I have sort of seen knocking around here and there has been some just really dull, plain music played over.
And that's one of the things that like I instantly fell in love with when it comes to ECW is just all the awesome themes that everybody came out to.
Yeah, like a lot of a big deal is made of how well music was used in ECW, and I mean you can even go forward to when Paul Heyman was a part of sort of running creative in WWE and wanting to get like Metallica as one of the people who do themes, and Vince McMahon not really agreeing to it and all that sort of stuff. Like you can see that's sort of one of his influences is just to have really good music that goes alongside wrestling.
Yeah, like when I remember watching that Guilty as Charged 2001, and RVD made his return to that show, and man, when he comes out to Pantera's Walk, and that whole entire crowd chants it, it's just that plus the Sandman entrance are just two of the greatest entrances you'll ever see.
That's awesome.
Just
I
for
can't wait to see
just
it.
for fan like interaction and knowing all the words to the songs, and it's just great.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing I love in wrestling, when crowds just are fully invested, fully going along with the song. So I guess licensed music's going to make that even better.
Yeah, I need to reach out and I'm sure you and John have a bunch of ICW that I can check out recommendations.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because I went down the rabbit hole of looking up Grado entrances.
Yeah, we've got some good entrances here in ICW,
Yeah.
but yeah, well, I'll definitely I can hook you up.
All
Don't
right,
worry.
that sounds good. Then we have Paul Heyman here cutting the typical awesome Paul Heyman promo.
Yeah, like it's amazing to watch Paul Heyman. Like, this is probably one of the earliest clips I've seen of Paul Heyman just doing any sort of promo, and like this is just he's got such a talent. Like this was pure magic that he was instantly connected with you. He was talking about the NWA tournament and how like WCW and WWF's titles weren't as prestigious, and all this sort of really deep over the top meaningful stuff, and just making everything seem 100 times more important. Just incredible stuff, really great. And yeah, I'm sure we'll get a lot more of that.
Yeah, like this man could sell you his mother's shoes for gold. Like he's that good of a salesman when it comes to his talking. It's just insane.
Yeah, well, you can see how he managed to keep the company afloat with no money for so long.
Yeah. Then we have a Shane Douglas promo, and he's got his backup with him.
Yeah, who was his backup? I didn't know who that was at all.
I'm not sure the name. I don't have the name written down here, but it's I know it's a football player, a former football player.
Yeah, I thought I sort of gathered that he was some sort of sportsman, is I think what I wrote in my notes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take better notes next time.
Yeah, but no, I really enjoyed seeing Shane Douglas as this, just cutting his promo and just obviously being an utter prick. Like he was great.
Yeah, he's definitely got that swagger, and man, it's throughout the years, as we'll see, he just gets like more and more of that, and becomes more of a dick and more of an ass, like as we go on.
That's great. I can't wait to see more of that. That's exactly what I want from him. He's so good at it.
So so let me get to our first match. It's 911 with Paul Heyman taking on our wild card, Doink the Clown.
Yeah, so this was interesting. This was an interesting first full match to get to see. Basically, just very little happens, and there are 3 choke slams, and that's the end, really. But I mean, it made 911 look like a monster. It made the crowd incredibly happy to see Doink getting the absolute shit beaten out of him. And good stuff, really.
We got our first sighting of Hawaiian shirt guy fan in the front row.
Amazing. All the ECW fans we're going to get to see over.
Which we'll see probably about every episode from now on.
Amazing.
We got our first awesome chant of "Kill the Clown."
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. It's only going to get better from there, but I'll take it.
We'll get some pretty rocking chants when the women start coming out later on.
Yeah.
The fans hold no bars when it comes to the girls.
Great, that'll be concerning in the year 2019.
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, 911 picks up the big win here. Let's see here, and we get Benoit versus Too Cold Scorpio.
Yeah, so this was sort of, once again, we sort of saw the closing moments of this match more than the whole thing. But Benoit did sort of like a very nice superplex, kind of standard, but big move, and then Scorpio just sort of like locked his legs to Benoit's to keep Benoit's shoulders down. Benoit thought he'd won, but Scorpio made it through. It was kind of like a sort of odd finish where you weren't sure who'd won, and it was kind of cool. It was nice to watch. Yeah,
Benoit definitely thought he won, and then the Scorpio got his hand raised, so it was kind of a bit of a disputed finish there until the fans figured out who won.
Yeah, but it was, it was interesting. I'm always a fan of things being a little bit crazy in wrestling, not knowing what's going on, that sort of thing. It's good to have a bit of shenanigans now and then.
Yeah, that's one of the things I remember too about ECW is like, man, it's like when one match ends, it's like another guy would come out and he would like, talk trash about someone, and then somebody else would come out, and then another impromptu match would come out. Guy would come out and they'd start a match. Like it flowed so nice. Like it wasn't just two guys are out, they start a match. It was so often you'd see like a guy come out and talk trash, and then he'd get jumped, and then the match would be started right then and there. It was a lot of like very like, impromptu stuff.
Nice. So. Well, yeah, I totally look forward to that. I mean, I think there's a few too many people who in wrestling currently who sort of complain about there not being clean finishes and stuff like that. And I think when there's this level of chaos, it's just way more fun, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're doing like a distracted finish like every second match, I mean, yeah, it's no doubt to get bored of it.
Yeah, definitely. But sometimes, people just shit on a match for the finish being, a no contest or a DQ or something like that. And in some situations, it's just a lot of fun. And I mean, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of finishes that, I mean, I know we won't get any disqualification finishes, but
Yeah. Yeah. So next we have Shane, just another quick clip of Shane versus Malenko, second round.
Yeah, so once again, we didn't really get to see too much of this, but we did get to see Shane Douglas hit two really brutal pile drivers. It was nice to see them. They were like, really classic, very sort of scary looking pile drivers.
Because this is like an NWA show, but ECW hosted it, so the entire card's not on here. They're just kind of showing clips from some of it, right? So
yeah. So we just get to see bits here and there, but it's you get a sort of taste of what went on. It was enough.
Exactly.
It was enough of what to see. I don't think seeing the full matches would have even been that exciting. It's not something we really needed, was it?
Right. It's like they're just showing you the best parts of each match anyway, and the finishes and
yeah.
So then we move on to another second round match. It's Too Cold Scorpio versus 911.
Yeah, so this was one where, I mean, without the knowledge of what happened further on in ECW, I kind of assumed it was going to be 911 who went through to the finals because he was sort of this huge monster. But no, Scorpio managed to sort of win due to absolute shenanigans of a Doink the Clown and another Doink the Clown. And
yeah, Doink comes out and he beats up Paul Heyman, Paul E. And then another guy comes out and he hits 911 with a chair, and it's Matt Bourne, the guy who was normally Doink. And so everybody's like, well, if Doink's hitting him, who the fuck is dressed up as Doink? And then, of course, he takes off his mask, and it's Shane Douglas dressed as Doink. So
yeah, that was, obviously Shane Douglas is making sure that this tournament goes exactly the way he wants.
Making sure he's not facing 911 in the end, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And, who can blame him?
Yeah, so then we go on to Too Cold Scorpio versus Shane Douglas for the main event.
We actually got to see the whole match this time.
It was right from the beginning, yeah.
So that was kind of cool. We got to see that. I mean, seeing the final makes by far the most sense. It was enjoyable. It sort of had a very technical start, but in like a good way. Lots of sort of like catch wrestling, and then we got to see sort of Scorpio really get into the match with his agility. You got to see his sort of front flip leg drop, which I really think someone needs to do in wrestling nowadays because it looks awesome. And it's like a perfect moonsault as well. Like, don't really see anything better than that nowadays either. Really good to see him. And but yeah, wasn't to be for Too Cold Scorpio because I think we all knew who was going to win this.
Right. That's the thing with Scorpio. He's for like kind of, I would say probably well known for his high flying, but he's a pretty solid technical wrestler as well.
Yeah, he just seems really good in sort of pretty much every way. He seems like a really good all round wrestler.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Shane hits the belly to belly to pick up the win.
Yeah, and then we get his sort of speech of what's happening with his speech of how he's really happy to have the NWA title and how it's so prestigious, and it definitely is just a humble, happy speech, and nothing changes.
Yeah, he definitely runs through the gambit of like all the people that have held the belt and all the people that mean so much to the NWA World Title, and makes mentions of his father and stuff that's looking down upon him and from heaven apparently, and and he pretty much spits on all the people who've held the NWA title before him and throws it down and declares they can all kiss his ass. So, and if you watch, he throws it down, and all the fans in the front row are just like, just sitting there with like not sure what to do. They're kind of like their mouths are open. They're just kind of, until he starts, talking about let the new era begin, the era of ECW, and he starts going on and like proclaiming himself as the new ECW champion instead of the NWA champion. So
yeah, and it's sort of like almost towards the end he sort of almost has like what feels like it's gonna be a face turn, which doesn't end up happening, but obviously the fans are just sort of like, yeah, we like ECW more than
NWA
anyway. So we kind of want to, we want to just like join in with the fuck the NWA sort of point of view of the moment, and then obviously he's still going to be a heel going forward.
Yeah,
I'm glad that's the way, but yeah, then sort of after this we ended up going towards, I'm not sure who the NWA official guy was, but he didn't seem happy.
No, before that we had another good chance of Flair is dead.
Yeah, we did.
Can't miss the good chance.
No, yeah, you're right. Bring that up every time.
Yeah, so we go to some guy, I'm not sure what his name is there, but he was definitely not too happy with Shane Douglas. And then we go to the actual ECW president, and it was Todd Gordon, and he says, as of right now, he's folding Eastern Championship Wrestling, and in its place will be Extreme Championship Wrestling, and we officially recognize Shane Douglas as our heavyweight champion.
Yeah, and I mean this is all made official by a spray painting of a sign to get rid of the Eastern and add Extreme underneath.
Yeah. So we have the Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge here out spray painting the flag, the banner, the ECW banner, and like you said, replacing the Eastern with Extreme, and it's kind of the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like it was pretty funny. They were like they were two just like obvious like goofballs, kind of like having a fun time, and it was like kind of amusing. It was almost just sort of like a weird comedy skit in the middle of this sort of.
It was, and the one guy there is just like looking at the camera. It looks like he's like higher than crazy, like. Yeah, so that's good. Then we have an interview with Shane Douglas. Talking about the title, and
once again running down the NWA and WWF and WCW, and we even have a little cameo appearance from Mick Foley.
Oh yeah, when he comes in to congratulate him.
Yeah, little baby Mick Foley looking like quite handsome, and it's really weird.
Really young.
Yeah. Well, younger.
Younger, yeah. Yeah, and we have another Shane promo, and he's with Doink the Clown.
Yeah, kind of like doing this sort of odd metaphor of like that he's bringing in Doink the Clown because he was this sort of cartoon character wrestler, and he's changing, like he wants to sort of show that he can transform that into like a serious thing, and a lot of this is sort of like a lot of the Shane Douglas promos especially is sort of like almost sort of shoot style and putting a big sort of emphasis on how wrestling should be like real and not a cartoon, and it's like all this sort of stuff that I think people still get interested in today when angles happen that are, blur the lines a little bit, and ECW is obviously, even in its sort of inception, very much fully behind that.
Yeah, like even like the biggest, promo of all time, people say, well, not the biggest, but people always go back to how big the pipe bomb was and how that style of shoot promo got over so well, about saying, all, just like Shane says, all the things he says about the other companies and what he doesn't like, and how, they're going to make wrestling part of their, like, a sport instead of just cartoon and entertainment. So, and people respond to the, the shoot style, the realness of what ECW has.
Yeah, definitely, and it was in this era where I think you could probably do more of that, and it would be more believable, not in sort of the era of, the internet and all that sort of stuff where where things would be, and I mean, everyone was sort of just a little bit less sort of in the know about wrestling and what was going on, so like all these sort of angles feel all the more real. And then I suppose with ECW as well, as a company, I mean, it is real that they want to knock all the competition and
very anti-establishment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Then we have a Shane versus Ron Simmons match.
Yeah, I had no idea that we were going to see Ron Simmons in early ECW. That was weird.
Damn.
Damn indeed. But yeah, I mean, it was good to see him. He was as stiff as he always is.
He is quite the huge man.
He is. I wouldn't want to get hit by him because he did not hold anything back. No,
he's definitely didn't seem like he was taking it easy. Just when he was throwing Shane on the ground too, it's like, man, he just like dropped him. It's like there's no care in the world for this guy.
Yeah, like he'd do just really normal like slams that you'd see in any wrestling match, or punches, and every time it'd still make you wince.
So Shane hits them with a belt and picks up the win.
Yeah, and we have Too Cold Scorpio sort of come in to try and sort of make the save, and they sort of have this alliance that we'll see sort of going forward towards the end of the episode now. But
then Shane cuts a promo with Joey Styles, who has, we've seen here a couple times in the episode, and he's talking to Sensational Sherry on the phone.
Yeah, so he's making this phone call and he's trying to bring Sherry back in. We sort of get and then we sort of get towards the point where he starts to make a match involving, calling in other stars as well. So that's kind of how it ends up going. But yeah, we actually do get Sherry coming in, especially, and then it sort of leads to them being in the ring together and making all these sort of decisions, really.
Yeah, so he's got a match with he was gonna get stunning Steve Austin to come in, and she was gonna bring him in from WCW because she was in WCW at the time, and he wanted her to come to ECW, come back and bring Stone Cold with her, and team up against Too Cold Scorpio and Ron Simmons. So I guess I don't know if it was a work or a shoot or not, but they say he comes out and apparently Stone Cold's injured, so they need to find a replacement. So Sherry brings out another one of the Hollywood Blondes, and it's Flying Brian Pillman.
Yeah, so this was really cool. I love, I've seen a little bit of Brian Pillman before, but I think it was sort of post an injury or something where it was a little bit less sort of high octane, whereas here he was sort of, you could tell he had all his agility and was going sort of all out. It was cool to see, and it was weird because they had this whole thing where with the stunning Steve Austin not showing up, Shane Douglas sort of did this thing where he guaranteed that you could get a refund in the middle of the show because he knew no one would want to when they saw who it was. So it was it was weird to see that Brian Pillman must have been actually a more exciting prospect than Steve Austin, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and at that time, the Hollywood Blondes were doing okay over in WCW, and he had didn't he have the Dangerous Alliance with Paul Lee, right? Stone Cold did. So
Yeah, I think that's right.
so he was when it comes to WCW, I have no clue about. So, but
No, me neither, really. But I mean, it was interesting that the fans were like sort of really electric for a replacement of Steve Austin for Brian Pillman.
I know.
You just don't expect that looking back.
I know. You think now these days, man, if Stone Cold was booked somewhere and then he got replaced, they don't care who's coming out. Nobody would be happy.
Yeah, no, there would actually be not one other name who could make up for that. So
Yeah, no doubt. So then we get a tag team match here, which I thought was pretty good. It was a pretty long, pretty good match.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got to see like pretty much all of it. I think there was maybe a couple of cuts here and there,
Yeah.
but like it was sort of actual full contest of these two teams going at it, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Both Pillman and Douglas worked really well together, as did Simmons and Scorpio.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's sort of like four really talented wrestlers just going at it.
Yeah, that was a pretty solid match. And we had another chant flap come up here saying Ric Flair sucks in the middle of the match.
Yeah, there's a lot of Ric Flair hate in ECW so far. That's something to see going forward, I hope.
I think that a lot of that's brought on by Shane and his like pure hatred of Ric Flair.
Yeah, I mean, well, there was a lot of mentions in his promos of the true nature boy, Buddy Rogers, and all that sort of stuff.
Shane has a hard time cutting a promo without mentioning how much he hates Ric Flair, so he does that quite often.
Yeah, but this was exciting, and then sort of midway through the match, you started to have Sherry interfering, but against Douglas and Pillman.
Right, but trying to be a little bit innocent there at the beginning, and
yeah, like putting a foot on the rope originally, and then trying to sort of say that it didn't happen, and then trying to make it look like it was a miscommunication that meant that when she did sort of like a double axe handle with a high heel, I think, from the top rope, that she was meaning to hit whoever it was, but ended up hitting
Shane Douglas in the head, yeah.
And then eventually it got to the point where this was realised, and I mean, she cost them the match, and then it didn't go well for her after that.
No, Shane Douglas decided to he took off the thing she had on her boob, and it was Ric Flair's phone number.
Yeah. So we had the Ric Flair. I mean, it couldn't have been anyone worse for Shane Douglas.
Right, the man he epitomizes the most, the man he hates the most.
Definitely. So yeah, so obviously that put him into a rage, and we got to see our first man-on-woman violence of ECW.
Yes, which will become pretty regular here in ECW.
Definitely. I mean, even nowadays, I am a fan of intergender wrestling, and I guess that's not really what this is. It's just attacking an innocent, not an innocent woman.
This ain't no one-on-one here. This is just Shane Paul driving a valet, but
yeah.
I mean, she had it coming. So
if we're gonna have wrestlers being angry at people, they're gonna attack them. And in ECW, it doesn't matter who that person is, how helpless that person is.
Yeah, we'll get some very good intergender matches later on when Jazz comes in.
Oh yeah, that'll be exciting.
We even get a good one with Bill Alfonso versus Beulah.
Yeah,
which is very bloody.
That's one of the things I've gone back to watch. And damn, when we get there, that will be something else.
Yeah, with this collection I have, it's got a bunch of best ofs, and one of the best ofs is the bloodiest matches, and of course that one's on there. So
yeah, I mean, I think that might be one of the bloodiest matches just sort of I might have ever seen, even outside of just ECW, just ever.
I know, and it's like when you think of the two people involved, it's like the last thing you think of is like violence and blood.
Yep.
So then we finish off the show. We get a Flair is dead chant to round out our good chants for the night.
Yeah, one last crowd chant against Ric Flair before we finish off the episode, I guess.
So we have to bookmark our shows with Ric Flair chants.
As long as there's a Ric Flair chant, a Ric Flair chant that is, very anti-Ric Flair.
Right.
As long as there's one at the start, in the middle, and at the end, then it's fine.
Yeah. That's it. So.
Yeah, that's our first episode done. I guess that's the end of Eastern Championship Wrestling, and sort of going forward, we're actually going to get towards Extreme Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, that's our birth of Extreme Championship Wrestling for sure. Now
I thought this was really interesting. Like, I really enjoyed sort of like the whole thing going through, getting to see a lot of Shane Douglas, getting to see sort of a few different characters coming in here and there, getting to see sort of the extreme nature of things, the crowd being really hot and really aggressive, and it's definitely like it was a good sign. I got to see a lot of talents, even if we didn't see that much of some of them. A lot of talents I'm like excited to see going forward. I want to see actual full Malenko and Benoit matches. They'll be great.
Yeah, and we also get to look forward to some awesome 90s commercials coming up in these episodes that we'll talk about.
Hell yeah, 90s commercials. That's what we're all here for, really.
All the awesome, like, every 10 minutes you'll get like call the ECW hotline for your hottest news.
Amazing, because it was all about hotlines in the 90s.
Yeah, so going forward then now it'll be like ECW TV, and then after the next episode it becomes Hardcore TV. So
nice. I feel like at some point we will have to try and call one of the hotlines, by the way. That has to be an experiment we go for.
Call it live on the podcast, and we'll see what happens.
Definitely.
We might end up getting another 1-900 somebody pick up. That's not quite ECW, but still maybe Extreme at some point.
That's concerning. Let's see what happens.
Hey, we're doing this live here, so who knows how it's going to be.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, that was a good first episode.
Totally. So, do you have much of an idea of what's going to happen in the next episode? What do we have sort of coming up?
So, you know what happened tonight? We pretty much have that to look forward to for the next episode.
Okay. Well, that's fun too.
So it's a bit of a recap. Like, it's funny because this episode here we got like one of ECW's most memorable moments in Shane throwing down the title and declaring, himself ECW champion, just kind of how it started. The next episode, we do get the recap, but we also get like probably one of the top 5 ECW moments of all time in the next episode. Involving someone named Tommy Dreamer, so.
I've been excited to see more of Tommy Dreamer.
Right,
so
and
that's good.
This episode and this moment is like, he said it, and a bunch of other people said it, is like the moment that they knew they had something there with ECW. And the moment that Tommy kind of finally clicked with the crowd. Because up till now, in Eastern Championship Wrestling, he's been coming out wearing suspenders, and he's like a pretty boy. So
amazing. Well, I tell you what, you couldn't have a much better teaser for our second episode of the podcast than that.
So if you want to see Tommy Dreamer almost get killed, and come back for the next episode.
Damn right, sounds good. This has been a lot of fun. I'm excited to see way more ECW and talk about it here.
Yeah, me too, man. I appreciate you joining me, and I look forward to it.
Hell yeah. Can I get some cheeky plugs in before we wrap up?
Yes, man. Plug yourself, plug your podcast, you name it. Plug your Twitch, plug everything you got.
Hell yeah, that's what I like to hear. So, follow me on Twitter at FishChipsWhips, which is where I'll post all my wrestling stuff, any writing I end up doing, although I've not done any writing for quite a while now, but it'll be there if there is. I'll also post about Twitch there, but on Twitch I'm Chips_Games. And of course, check out mine and the already mentioned John Dinsdale's podcast, Drops, Dives, and Death Matches, if you want to hear about wrestling that isn't ECW and is more modern and usually very good, because it's usually like exciting New Japan wrestling, but sometimes it's also WWE, and that's a shame. But that's pretty much it. That's all my that's all the stuff I need to plug. But yeah, just there's a lot more wrestling content out there if you're still looking for it. But if not, just come back next week.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely a subscriber of Drops, Dives, and Death Matches, and it's a great podcast. I'm not just saying that either because I've listened to every single episode. But if you want to hear some great outro music, if you want to hear some references to Savage Garden quite a bit, we know John's going to be listening to this, so he can take heart knowing we got to keep cheap Savage Garden plug in here.
Definitely, we need to make sure that Savage Garden is mentioned on this podcast too at least once. But
yeah,
and the outro music is definitely the most important part of the podcast.
For sure, we'll have to keep that trend going of putting in some good music on this one.
Nice.
So, and don't do what I did either. And when you're looking for Chips on Twitter, make sure you write down his Twitter name properly, because the last 5 times I tried to type it in, I kept getting like Chips, Tits, Whips. And then I type it again, I got Chips, Whips, Tits. And then I got Fish, Tits, and Whips. I couldn't remember the order, I couldn't remember how it went. And every time I tried typing in, I kept like fucking adding a different word that wasn't supposed to be there. I got some fish tits come up and some chip tits, and I don't know. It was a mess. So do me a favor and write this man's Twitter down and go there now so that you don't forget.
Yeah, otherwise it'll ruin your search history.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you can catch me on Twitter and Twitch at DreadnoughtX. And yeah, this the podcast for now you'll be able to check on Spreaker. We also have a GuiltyasPodcast on Twitter. You can check us out there, and we'll have when the episode gets put up and the link to the Spreaker. And then give us a few days and we'll be up on Spotify and iTunes and Google Play, and then you'll be able to download us everywhere.
Nice. That's what I like to hear. So
it's
as easy to find anywhere that you need us.
All right, let's get out of here. Thanks, Scott.
Sure thing. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
All right, bye.
E.C.W, we're going to give you the most bang for your buck. We're going to break every effing rule in the business. And for that, I promise you, we are guilty as charged.